Okay, thanks. Hey everyone, this is Consensus Layer Call 153. It is issue 1356 in the PM repo. The agenda is here in the chat. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into things. So first up, Pectra, one of our favorite forks. So I think the first thing to call out is that the Hoodie testnet has gone live. The Pectra upgrade for that testnet is scheduled next Wednesday, March 26th. And yeah, so far it's going pretty well. I'm not sure if anyone has anything they would like to comment on about the testnet. Yeah, there's a link here from Perry. If you need to know anything about the network, hoodie.ethpandops.io. Anything to say?
I'm not sure if Barry is around the time around. We can say that we started giving out the keys. So initially, running from Monday, we have started running all the keys for everyone. And as the different client teams are getting ready to spin up their infrastructure, we can hand over the mnemonics, and they can run everybody can run their own validator keys. So
Okay.
if you're not running it yet and you would like to, then please reach out and we can pass the mnemonics to you.
We also have a few unused mnemonics that we're happy to hand out to anyone who wasn't allocated keys at Genesis. And if we're not able to accommodate you there, we can also get some funds for you to do deposits afterwards. Just reach out. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for spinning it up so quickly. I was curious about client releases. I've seen some people making them. Do any client teams want to call out a particular release that's compatible with Hoodie?
For Lodestar, we have 1.28 release yesterday. That one is compatible with Hoodie.
Cool. Yeah, and otherwise, okay, tech release imminent. Yeah, Nethermind's ready. Okay. Also Besu, great. So yeah, if you're listening, just look at the usual places you go to get updates for your clients. They've been streaming in, and yeah, you'll have a version to run Hoodie if you're interested in that testnet. And yeah, otherwise it looks pretty good. And Pectra, like I said, is let's see, I think this is next Wednesday. So yeah, that'll be exciting to see. And hopefully this time around there are no issues. Okay, just to call it out from the chat, Reth has no release, but looks like main will work. Lighthouse has a release. Geth's working on it. Okay, great. So either way, if you don't have a release yet, please work towards getting one. It'll be useful. A number of different community members are interested in running that testnet. So a release with official support would be really helpful. Okay, so next up then, I wanted to get into essentially a postmortem for Haleshki and Sepolia testnets with Pectra. Yeah, I know that there's been some work on gathering information around different issues. Does anyone want to speak to any of them now? There's kind of a list of a few different things. And I believe Mario from the EF is working on an actual postmortem, and I don't think we have that yet, but once we do, we can go through it in depth. Essentially, yeah, there are some issues with a number of things, configuration in different clients. Then with Haleshki, we had issues with the chain split and justification there that led to a number of issues around, that basically made the test not unstable. We saw some issues with slashings acting a bit weird, so that's something we should follow up on. And yeah, there are a number of things there. So I wasn't sure if we'd have an actual postmortem yet today, but it seems like we don't, so we will wait. And otherwise, we have been working a bit on essentially like a sort of checklist or protocol even for instance response. I see Frederick's here on the call. I don't know if you want to say a few words about how you're thinking about that. Oh, Tim says we do have postmortems. We'll circle back around to that.
I don't have that much to say yet. It's still a work in progress, and it's being discussed with various people from the client teams. And once there is some kind of initial draft ready, it will be posted for more general feedback.
Okay, thanks. And maybe just like a brief overview. The idea is just to have, I mean, there was like some de facto process, and there's always been a de facto process, but I think having something that is more formal, you could even imagine there's like different point people for a particular release. So, or I should say upgrade. So if something does go wrong, then, we can say, okay, this person is in charge of doing this person is in charge of doing that, and hopefully have a more streamlined way to respond when something does go wrong. So, okay, great. Hot off the presses, we do have a postmortem from Mario, which is super cool. And yeah, I guess given that we're just seeing it now, let me just grab a link to it here. Oh, Tim put it here. And yeah, I guess please take a look. And yeah, I can follow up async if there's anything we need to address. But ultimately, yeah, there's a number of things that we need to follow up on. And I think the main thing is just having this notion of non-finality, testnet or devnet, so we can poke into these issues and yeah, resolve any bugs that we find. So I think that might be that for now. Anything else anyone would like to say about Sepulveda or Haleshki? Okay. Then I suppose we'll move on. Not too much to say there. We've just covered this on previous calls, so we'll just keep those threads running. From there, then the question is essentially, yeah, getting a temperature check on Pectra and Mainnet. So I believe we discussed last call around some things we wanted to see. One of them would be the Pectra Hoodie fork going well. So that is going to happen next week. There is a bug bounty competition that's wrapping up, I think, next week as well. Frederick, do you have more information on when that's over?
Yeah, it's the 24th. And
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a few more days, and yeah, there's a few findings coming here and there.
Okay, great. So yeah, then I wanted to check in with people and understand kind of where we're at. So I think seeing Hoodie go well is a prerequisite. Like Frederick mentioned, I think there have been some findings from the bug bounty. And so you could imagine we want to have some, I don't know if you want to call it a moratorium, but basically have like some period of time in between when, we found a bug and there have been no bugs, and then we wouldn't really think about mainnet until then. So you can imagine there's like a 2 or 3 week buffer in between that before we move ahead with mainnet. There was a comment here from Andrew on some actual timings, which is useful, although it might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. Yeah, Dano has this concept of bug escrow, which I think makes a lot of sense. So either way, yeah. I mean, I guess I'd just like to hear from client teams, like, how are we feeling? Like, are we feeling good about Pectra? Would people want to still give it some time before we seriously think about mainnet? Or do we think we're ready to go ahead and set some dates? We could imagine basically saying on this call, hey, we feel pretty good about it, and the next week check in with the EL teams and move forward there. Okay. Like client says he wants to see Hoodie. Justin says he'd like to give us some time. Yeah, Paul?
I know that previously we've already kind of indicated that we want to see Hoodie actually upgrade to Electra. We've also indicated things like we want to see how people like Lido use it, and they're going to take a period of time. So I think we need to understand how comfortable in all of that we need to be before we're going to be talking about dates, because I don't think that the dates really cover what reality is, where we have to wait for 30 days post-release, and we want to see Hoodie upgrade and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so basically from the chat and what people are saying here, we are not ready. So we'll keep an eye on it. In the meantime, there's a lot of work behind the scenes to squash any bugs and yeah, just ensure that things proceed smoothly. Okay. That was pretty straightforward. I think otherwise then on Pectra, there was something that came up around history expiry. So with history expiry, I believe there was a May 1st commitment to get rid of the pre-merge history, and that's fine. One thing that is complicated a bit is with 6110 and how it interacts with deposits. Essentially, before that, you need all the deposit logs, and that basically means having the history. And that kind of then implies, if you think about it, a dependency of history expiry on the current history existing, which then implies that with 6110, you can probably get around this. But I did want to call this out just to confirm with client teams if they are seeing this the same way. So maybe let me like rephrase it a bit. Like, do we feel like we can ship history expiry before Pectra goes live? And the sort of key unlock there is 6110. Okay, well, we got a confirmation from Dustin. I'm not sure if there are any history expiry or Portal people on the call. Yeah, so Sophia asked, it shouldn't matter for pre-merge history. The thing is, so there are deposits before the merge, and so you could imagine wanting those, for example, if you're syncing the chain. Yeah. Nico asked if we just expire history before deposit contract deployment. Right, so that would be another way to do this. And yeah, again, I'm not sure if there are any portal people here, but yeah.
Wait,
guess.
what question is being asked specifically?
So there's a dependency of the CL on the history, basically. And this goes away with 6110, but that's only live in Pectra. And so then now we kind of have this dependency between the Pectra dates and any history expiry dates. And there was a commitment to drop history in some form, I think, coming up in May. Now, given with the possibly extended Pectra timelines, there's something here we need to coordinate.
I think it would be fun to do the proposal of chat of doing like some number before the logs started appearing.
Sorry. Yeah. So that would be one way to do this is rather than pre-merge, you just go back further in time, I guess, to the beacon chain genesis. Possibly before then. Whenever, I guess, okay, actually it'd be when the deposit contract went live.
Yeah, I think that's a good middle ground. And then Pectra will ship in like a month or two later, and then we could just move the number for 44s or 6110, I guess.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that. And yeah. I can also make a note on next week's ACDE, just because there might be some more oral people there. And yeah, okay. I think that, well, it sounds like the decision is to do history expiry, but you only expire before the deployment block of the deposit contract, like Lukash is saying here.
Does anybody actually want to do this? Because one of the things with the pre-merge history is it's all of this data that is not of the format that we have anymore. Like now post-merge, we have all of the Ethereum block data within the beacon block. But pre-merge, one of the advantages was, this is an old format that we're not going to use anymore. we can just make one commitment to all of the pre-merge history at one moment. And now we have this root that you can bake into clients, and then you can always prove this pre-merge history. So if we break this up, now we like create this root of the pre-merge data, of the pre-6110 data. And now we again need to like deal with the data between 6110, or sorry, the data between the deposit contract launching and the beacon chain launching in a separate issue.
Right. So then the other option, I think like Tim was calling out, is we just delay history expiry a bit. But this is something people should be aware of if that's what we do. It seems a lot simpler just to like wait for Pectra, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, and I have a question around the test nets as well. So Nishan says this is already live on Sepolia, but I feel like we should test this on test nets as well. So is there value, like are actually all the validators on Sepolia running this? And should we test it on Haleski and Hoodie as well? Or yeah, I guess Hoodie has no pre-merge history, but
Same problem
Halesh,
with Polsky. There's also no pre-merge history, so Sepolia is likely the only
okay.
place.
Okay. And when we say it's live on Sepolia, is it like there's one node running it on Sepolia, or are the majority of the validators and nodes that we're aware of running this on Sepolia?
I'm not, as far as I know. Nishant made the comment. Do you have more information, Nishant?
Yeah, I just know some ELs are testing with dropping the history. I do not know if it's all of them.
Yeah.
I think Nethermind is testing on it.
Yeah, because it feels like this is a pretty big change. Like we should thoroughly test it on at least a test net before we move to mainnet. So that is something that we can prioritize now. If it would be nice to see like, okay, what percentage of Sepolia can we get the drop history? What issues come up when we do that and whatnot before we actually ship this to mainnet?
So I want to
Right.
give a quick comment here and just say that a big chunk of the testing related to history expiry is just on the clients themselves, because most of the impact of this change will be within the functionality provided by the clients. And then on the network wide, there's actually, I think, not a lot of interaction to be expected except for the two things, which is that the sync still has to work after this. And by that, I mean the sync up, like down to the merge point, that should be working with all of the clients, even though a significant chunk of the network has dropped their history. And then the other thing is the interaction with the CL. So these two things I think can be tested in the testnet, but most of the tricky bits of history expiry is just going to be stuff within each client.
Right. And are you suggesting that this can be done in isolation, like just locally with your client, or does it need some more thorough testing?
Like for us, at least like with Geth, we are in the process of implementing this right now, and most of the stuff that we found so far is just stuff that we have to fix within our own client. We have created a testing tool for this as well that will basically just hit the RPC and check what the client is doing. And but it's not, I don't think it's like this type of change that really requires like a ton of network testing, sort of.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that all makes sense. I still think to Tim's point, we should roll this out formally on Sepolia before mainnet. So given that we do already have Pectra on Sepolia, then we can move ahead there. Then yeah, it sounds like most people here want to wait until Pectra is live on mainnet before rolling out history expiry to mainnet. So yeah, I can put a summary of this into like the history expiry Discord channel Is there a better place?
I think that's a fun place.
Okay.
One question, sorry, just to follow up on the Sepolia stuff. So I asked what percent of stake and nodes do we want to
I'm
see
going to
run
see
this?
Michael in 203.
That's right. And then Barnabas says 100. My expectation is we probably won't get 100, right? We'll still have some nodes that want to store everything.
At least from the validator's side, I think we're going to
Yes.
get 100.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know, Colby, like what is like a reasonable expectation here? Like I do feel like having run, like a small number of nodes ad hoc in an ad hoc way on Sepolia feels insufficient to then say we're defaulting to dropping this on mainnet. But I don't have a sense for like, okay, what is the like number we want to see on Sepolia? Do we want to move 100% of the stake? Is there some percentage of non-validating nodes we'd also like to see update? Like, yeah, do you have a feel for what's a reasonable thing to aim for before we actually ship this to mainnet?
I don't. As Felix was saying earlier, that this is mostly like there's not a lot to test on the peer-to-peer protocol, from my understanding. So I guess it would kind of be up to your guys' comfort levels. If you want, do the whole network. If you don't, do half. I mean, it's pretty flexible.
Yeah, I'd imagine we just get all the nodes we can on Sepolia to update.
Maybe one thing, I don't want to derail it too much, but like on this topic, since we had also the portal meeting last week and extensively discussed the ETH wire protocol version 69. This is maybe more of an EL call item, but we do actually need to still formally agree on the definition of this protocol version. And one of the things there is that I proposed to add the sort of like history pruning block information into the wire protocol alongside some other changes. I'm not sure, we do kind of have to at some point make a decision on this and say, yeah, we're going with this, or we have to change it still. There was a bit of a disagreement earlier about this. And it would be kind of nice because then we could actually check on the network which, like how many nodes are supporting it, first of all, like how many nodes have actually dropped the history, but also we could test all kinds of interactions, like if a client goes too far, for example, what does that mean? Like if they prune basically like much more history than they should, do we disconnect them, or how does that affect the other clients and so on?
Okay. And yeah, it sounds like Sepolia will be a good place to test that. I guess one thing then to follow up with around this ETH69 protocol, like, is this being tracked somewhere? Is there an issue? Are the history expired people just aware of it? Okay. Yeah, how about we add an agenda item to next week's call, and I can also put a summary of all this into Discord. Okay, thanks, Felix. Okay, so I guess a quick summary. We do agree that there's this dependency with Pectra and history expiry. So one way to move forward is to keep this May 1st date, but then do that on Sepolia. It also gives us room to test. And then once Pectra is live on mainnet, we can think about history expiry there. Okay. I think that was all I had for Electra today. Anything else we should discuss? Barnabas?
Yeah, I would like to mention that on Pectra.net 6, we have raised the gas limit to 60 million, and we have been spamming it pretty heavily. We have found that gas and lighthouse pair seem to be struggling to keep up. I think Gus is already aware of the issue, but I just want to raise it here too. This is with 16 gigs of RAM. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we were seeing some out of memory issues at the higher gas limit. So, yeah. You said Geth and Lighthouse?
Yeah, so that specific pair. So like Gas doesn't seem to have issues with other CIAs, and Lighthouse doesn't seem to have issues with other CIAs.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, Geth and Lighthouse devs, please take a look. Otherwise, Barnabas, I am curious, like how generally did that go, moving to 16 mil?
Other than that, it was pretty smooth. Like we had to bump the resources on every single node. We started out with 8 gigs of RAM, but that was just really struggling for lots of pairs. Like Bezu and Teku really struggled to keep up. So like 6 gigs of RAM is the absolute minimum.
Okay. Okay, well, that's good information. Cool. Anything else on Pectra? Okay. If not, then we'll move to Puros. So there was a nice breakout this week. I guess maybe we'll start with DevNet 5. Does anyone want to give an update on how DevNet 5 is going? It sounds like it's been pretty stable from what I've seen.
I can just say on Lighthouse's end, we had some syncing issues, but we've identified those and fixed them at this point.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Prism SuperNet has some issues because the way the database is designed, we save one data column per file, and so in total we need more than 10 million data columns and 10 million files. We are working on a fix to redesign the database to avoid this issue.
Thanks. And presumably you'd fix that before DevNet 6, right?
Yeah, it's ID.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Okay.
this week.
Okay, cool. And yeah, otherwise, there is DevNet 6 planned. There are specs with a few different things. I think at least validator custody is one of the big differences. And yeah, from the breakout, it sounded like implementations are underway. So yeah, things are progressing there. Barnabas?
So yeah, we would like to have validator custody as soon as possible, already deployed on DevNet 5, because we don't have to wait for DevNet 6 to launch. So it'll be a nice separation, but if any clients are ready, just let us know. And we can basically just roll it out on DevNet 5 already and see if it works as expected, and also test it on kurtosis. Additionally, we also fuzzed some private keys, P2P private keys. So we're going to be launching a 16 node network, basically with each node covering one subnet, one unique subnet. So we're going to try to sync up a super node to a network of nodes where everybody has only one unique subnet. And that should probably help us understand if every client is able to serve every single subnet.
Okay, sounds useful.
There's also one more topic. So the Sunnyside Lab guys have been doing some test nets with higher blob counts. And what they've noticed is that there are some peering issues that start occurring at higher blob counts. And they're currently testing mainly with gets, and the current assumption is that get's implementation of get blobs might be not as optimal. So it would be nice if we could have other clients also implementing it and engaging with the topic in general. I think right now there is only a get implementation. So yeah, just having more EL implementations would help.
Can any EL teams here speak to their GitLab's progress? Okay. Aragon has GitLabs. Anyone else looking at it? Okay. Okay. And there's a discussion thread here in Discord. Roman, do you want to say more about your comment here?
Basically, the Sunnyside guys flagged that Threat is experiencing problems whenever there are higher blob counts. And we did discover the bug that's causing that. Basically, for engine get blobs, we only check in memory index and don't check it on disk, whether they're available.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I think they already have a couple more experiments they want to run. But yeah, I would assume the team would present their findings either next week or the week after once we have some explanations.
Okay. And Ben says here in the chat, another mine should have it as well. So that might help with testing Perry, because then we have Geth, Aragon, and Othermind that support GitBlobs.
Perfect. And just to confirm, are all of these get blob supports for V1 or for V2? Okay, got it. So it might be V1. Yeah, either way, is just it would be great if more EL devs are engaging with PRDAS and we can take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think people are a little busy with Pectra, but soon we should have pretty full attention on PRDAS. Cool. Okay, let's see. I did want to call out, there was a small spec update for Hulu. And this essentially just moves some of the validator concerns into a validator guide. This is just consistent with previous upgrades and the specs. So this is mostly a presentation thing, but just an FYI. And yeah, please CL devs take a look when you have a minute. There was something else that came out of the breakout call Tuesday. And essentially it has to do with how we handle validator custody. So the way it works today is that basically the number of columns you custody scales with how many validators you have. And there was a point brought up that this might not be responsive in the event that your validators change while you're running. So why could they change? Well, maybe you consolidate, so you have some number that becomes a smaller number. Or you could also imagine many different software setups have the ability to add validators dynamically while, say, a beacon node or VC is running. So in this case, then you would essentially be out of sync with what you should be custodying and what you started with. So does anyone have any thoughts on this, or do we feel like we need to address it? Is it not balance based? So I'm actually not sure what the wording is at the moment. There was another PR from Gajender to touch on that. But either way, there's still this point that I think sort of the naive implementation is you just, when you boot, you figure this out and that's what you custody. But you still have this issue where this could change, you know, at runtime essentially. And then the question is how to handle that. You could make the argument that like there won't be frequent enough consolidations or additions like this that would really matter, but it did. It was a small thing that came up, and I thought I'd bring it up here. Gajender.
Yeah, just want to add to that, since it's indices based and therefore basically the balance on consolidation or for any other reason, for whatever reason the balance changes. So the custody requirement will change and the peer will have to dynamically update, backfill, and update the custody that it has of the history in the last window that it has to maintain the custody for, as well as going forward. So that way, I think dynamic one automatically takes care of it, and the static one we are basically figuring out whether to change the language to support both type of dynamic and static types of custodies. But yeah, we'll see on that.
Okay.
Could we have that node somewhere just store how many validators they were connected to? Then at least it wouldn't be a problem at every like startup, and they would just remember, oh, like the total balance that connects to me is 1,000 ETH, so I'm gonna custody for that.
Yeah, so what my proposal was to have this as an explicit input where, people can, so where the spec itself is just talking about the spotted stake, whether it's dynamic or static. And again, it can, as you said, it can be done in many ways. You can basically have validator registrations, take care of how many validators are registering for you, or maybe the validators who have used your APIs for 2 epochs. Right, so you can do validator registration, or you can provide them as a static input, validator indices as static input, or provide a supported stake, which was the PR that I was pushing. But yeah, I think we would be able to easily identify the stake that this particular node needs to provide and the custody that it needs to provide.
Right, I'm trying to think about what would make it the easiest for users, and then like ideally you don't want another command line parameter that you have to specify, but if it could work it out automatically and then just store it as a reasonable default, it would mean that users don't have to change anything.
Yeah, so once we have dynamic, then basically you don't need anything, because then everything is automatic, and then the beacon node can decide whether it's want to store, but there is no need for it to store, because whenever it will restart again, the validators, it will keep track of the validators that are getting duties from it, and then it will be able to do it. I think basically it's client dependent how the clients want to handle.
Right. And do you know Gajender for the dynamic setting? Like, would it pull for like periodically? Because that would address the issue that I was bringing up originally.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so I guess there's 2 things here. I guess I don't fully understand with the static method how it would update. So dynamic then makes a lot more sense to me. And then what you would want to, this is also to Dankrat's point, like you would imagine you just boot your node like today, and then the beacon node can ask the VC for how many values are attached, figure out custody from that. It could also then do this periodically. So like every few epochs or something, or, on some cadence, then
Yeah, so
it should just track in the way we want it to.
yes. Yes, we generally have every epoch, we generally have validator registrations, especially for the fee recipient as well as for builders, and maybe we can use that method to register the validators into beacon node, the indices into beacon node that beacon node should be serving the duties for. And so yeah, that method can be done, or we can also do that. Okay, what are the validators whom you have served APIs duties for 2 epochs in a row? Because, for example, suddenly you have to switch your validator to someone else, to a backup node, and it should not then reject it because your main node was the only one having the custody and the backup node was not having the custody. So I mean, we can basically say that, okay, so validator can track what are the so beacon node can track what are the validators which are consistently using it, and there can be many methods for it. So
Right. Right. And can someone speak to how it works right now? Like, is it something you hard code in your configuration?
Could you repeat that, please?
Oh yeah, I was just asking, how does it work right now? Because it sounds like it doesn't do this sort of more dynamic periodic check.
So we have registration, and we can, as Puros is also saying that we can just directly reuse it. So we have builder registration. We also generally do a fee registration, fee recipient
All right,
registration.
but yeah, I'm asking if the custody infrastructure already works like this today.
The validator custody one.
Yeah.
Alex,
So it
clients
has not
haven't implemented it yet.
It has not
Okay.
specified as how the registration should happen. So there is no specification for that right now. So clients are coming up with their own ideas as of now, I guess.
I mean,
Gotcha.
in the spec, it just says basically based on the current state, like look at what's the balance that's attached to your node and use that. So it's like as dynamic as it can be, I guess. But yeah, I think it's okay to make it more flexible or more restrictive. I mean, if we want to make it, if we want to really like specify in the spec that it should be based on registration, like that's also fine. I think it would be good to like decide on this sooner rather than later, because it's just been like this kind of unresolved thing for a while, and like people are already working on implementation. So I think you'd like, yeah, if we want to simplify it, it would be better to not to waste people's effort in the meantime.
Yeah.
So if we're going the registration route, then basically, I mean, we could still do the supported stake PR in the sense that cleanup in the sense that so wherever spec has valid indices is available data, or to figure out what the custody it needs to do, it can just use the supported stake, and then supported stake itself is maintained by the beacon node through this registration, and it could basically be a independent thing, and that way basically the spec can be cleared out. And that was what my suggestion was on how the static custody PR could be reshaped.
Okay. My sense is that we leave the spec alone. But yeah, it does seem like this is some type of implementation note that would be valuable to have written down somewhere. I'll take a look at your PR agenda, and yeah, I'll make sure that we move forward on this. Because yeah, sounds like there's something to resolve here. Francesco?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would, if we do make it more flexible, I would want to change the spec, just because right now the spec does basically say like you should. I mean, it's phrased in a way where like it seems like you should be dynamically adjusting it, and I feel like yeah, if we don't want that, then let's just. I mean, we don't have to talk about implementation details in the spec, but like maybe just
Right.
like phrase the spec in a bit more flexible way.
I think we do want the dynamic. Oh, at least I want the dynamic thing. And I think there was at least some support in the chat for that.
Yeah, dynamic thing could still be maintained through the same spec, I guess. The change that I was pushing for, so that basically doesn't put any onus on the clients to implement it in any particular way.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can follow up here and we will get this figured out. Okay. Anything else on PureDOS? Okay. Then great. Let's see. I think there is just one more agenda item then for today. Moving towards Fusaka. And there is a request to move EIP 7688 to PFI status, which basically means that it's proposed for Fusaka. The way that this pipeline kind of works is that you would have various things PFI'd, then there is then a downstream step of actually scheduling things for Fusaka. That would be what's included in the fork. So we're not quite to the SFI stage yet with Fusaka, but yeah, just a call out that this EIP has been PFI'd. And if you don't know the number, so this is 7688, and this is essentially stable containers. This came up because, yeah, so I think as many of you know, there's this notion of generalized index with SSZ, and essentially they're not stable if you change the type past a power of 2 is the TLDR. And this EIP with stable containers, this is one designed to give you this stability. And this is really nice for applications because if these generalized indices change, then presumably you need some sort of governance mechanism, some way to update your smart contract infrastructure with the new indices. And something like this would make it so that you essentially just write your smart contracts once, and then you don't need to worry with any sort of governance. So yeah, let's see. This came from. I'm not sure.
It came from me, and I'm
okay.
here.
Okay, there you go.
Comment on it.
To me. Okay, cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, thank you, Alex,
But yeah, if you'd like to say anything.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for a short introduction. So basically, the thing is that with 4788, which is Beacon Loose available on execution layer, applications can now verify consensus layer data. To verify this consensus layer data, they need to know where this consensus data is located in the container, and that's why we need G indices. But the problem is that the algorithm of containerization right now is designed in a way that if any structures change on, say, on top of the tree or at the beginning of the tree, it means that all of the indices move further down the tree, which creates two problems. The first one, as Alex mentioned, is that this indices should be at least upgraded with the hard fork. And given that there's no way to have a simultaneous upgrade that will go together with the hard fork, there's an additional effort required not only to support and update and prepare this new indices and to upload them, to approve them by governance and so on and so forth, but there's also an additional effort here to create mechanisms that do understand like on which fork we are currently at, and depending on that, they're using either previous indices or new indices. So that's a huge pain in the ass. And why I have raised this question specifically at this moment from LIDA point of view is that before Pectra, like before the current moment, we have only one place where we use this mechanism, and it's like pretty okay to update this one place. And it's a community staking module where we proof validator withdrawals and slashings using that. However, in the LIDA roadmap, in the upcoming 6 months, there's 3 more places which will potentially use the same functionality, which is ZK oracles, which is proofs of triggerable withdrawals, and one additional place that I can hardly remember. But yeah, and ST vaults for sure, ST vaults. So the problem is right now is with the current state, we will have to, and basically any other protocol using EIP 4788 will have to do this significant development with the support of this dynamic G indices which can switch from hard fork to hard fork, then on each hard fork. And we've seen it before, like starting from Denkun, this G indices, they have been changing, they will change in Pectra, and they will most likely change in Fusaka and moving further on. So on each hard fork, there's an additional governance action required, and the additional complexity of the code required from any protocol using this EIP 4788 is significantly increased. So my proposal here, especially given that I know that several client teams have almost done this implementation, namely Lodestar and Nimbus, I propose to consider the implementation of this relatively small yet significantly valuable EIP and include it in Fusaka, given that with the peer DAS things seems to go on fine, and this EIP itself is not a significant step, neither in terms of development nor in terms of testing.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the update. I guess, yeah, before we take any more comments, I will surface Nix's comment here. Rocket Pool did not make the call, but they're essentially in the same place. Where, yeah, there's very nice infrastructure for this, for any type of staking pool or like other, I mean, there are other applications as well that you could imagine using the beacon layer data. And yeah, this has kind of been like a long-standing issue with the SSC spec. So, yeah, thanks, Dimitri. And sure, Vitan.
I just want to add that this EIP, while it solves these stability issues, it also opens up some synergies if we want to do things like reducing beacon state size, because it also gives us the concept of optionals. For example, if you want to get rid of the ETH1 votes in the beacon state, which are used for the legacy deposit mechanism, which is no longer used after Pectra is fully done with the legacy deposits. If we just delete them from the beacon state, it would also re-index everything, right? But with this EIP for 788, not for 788, the other one 7688. With that one, we get access to optionals, which means we can just mark that field as optional and then exclude it from the Fusaka profile of the beacon state. And we can do the same for finalized epochs in the validators list. There are currently several epoch timestamps tracked there, even after they are no longer required for any state transitions. If we can get rid of them, that's dozens of megabytes that we can get rid of. So if we decide on getting this EIP, we should also think about what else can be combined with it on the beacon state, because it will essentially require us to think a bit more ahead about the design space that we would like to have. Sorry? Oh, just a mic glitch. But yeah, it's mostly staking pools, Tony. And layer 2s, I guess, as well.
Eigenlayer does use 4788, just by the way. So, I mean, there are a number of people who use this contract and potentially have this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least, what we can do is just, I can bump the EIP to Fulu. We can run it on the devnet, and we can think about possible other changes on the side, like if we want to get rid of ETH1 data, if we want to clean up the beacon state, and so on.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, on that note, so first off, thank you everyone for the comments. I do think the prudent choice is to focus on PureDOS and PureDOS stability before we think about other EIPs to add into Fusaka. And yeah, I think for today, it's probably best just to acknowledge the PFI of the CIP. Everyone can keep it on the back of their minds, but otherwise, I think we'll leave it there for today. Okay. So, okay. Tim has an all caps message. No additions until DevNet 1. Yeah. So let's stick to that. And that being said, yeah, there are a few PFI DIPs that we can keep on the radar, but yeah, I think everyone here agrees we should focus on PureDOS on the CL side. And speaking of, I think Gajinder, you had one more comment to circle back to for PureDOS.
Yeah, so one thing that while we were looking at the implementation for custody was that we had to open up all our gossip channels. We had to subscribe to all the custody subnets all the time, because we have to do a local block publishing. And I'm not sure how other clients are managing it. For example, you only maintain the custody of 4, but then you also have to do a local block publishing. If you don't have to do a local block publishing, then obviously there is not an issue, because the builder will transmit it. But for local block publishing, how are the clients handling it? Because if you have an open subnet, then you will receive gossip messages on it.
I didn't quite catch the problem. You're asking about the column publishing when you're locally building?
So basically, I'm saying that let's say you have a node which has a custody of 4. You only are custodying 4 columns, but you have to open, subscribe, and maintain peers for all the subnets, because when you want to do local block publishing, then you won't be able to publish all the data. And for example, if you only have if you're only subscribed to 4 subnets, and then you won't be able to get enough of your columns out there for anyone to even reconstruct them back.
Unless I'm wrong, if you are doing local block building and you are subscribed only to 4 subnets, you only need to have peers in your fanout, not in your mesh, to be able to publish the block. So you don't need to subscribe to all subnets. Only have enough peers in fanout.
Okay, and then dynamically push them those columns on that subnet.
Right. Yeah, that's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. So we will try to include this approach.
But however, that means that you need to look for peers in all as soon as you have one validator connected, and so possibly you are going to propose a local block. You need to have peers in all subnets, yeah, even if you don't subscribe to the subnets.
Right. So any of our, once validator is attached, any of our peer prioritizing algorithm should make sure we'll basically, for this particular thing, will go out of the window, because you gotta have all the peers at least 64 on the 64 subnets maybe. Yeah, thanks for this.
Cool. So let's see. I think that was everything on the agenda. Paul had a comment speaking to some other things that we've touched on already. Anything else? Otherwise, we will wrap up early and turn our attention back to Pectra and Puros. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye everyone.